ready. I believe in you, YouTube. And it's going. Okay. All right. We're live on Facebook, YouTube, and if we can successfully get to Twitch, this will be a miracle moment, people. Miracle moment. Anybody want to donate money to us so we can multi-stream?
Sorry about that.
Kidding. Kidding. Or am I?
Buzz. Oh man, is CosTalk live?
Yeah, CosTalk Live is live. Love
Yeah.
Woohoo!
Well, we're live on YouTube and Facebook. It's not going to go on Twitch. I'm going to try it on my personal one and see if it's a problem with me or it's a problem with something else. I just don't have any luck with OBS. It does not like me.
It's okay, buddy.
Yeah, we'll get there. Well, hello, Facebook and YouTube for now. I'm gonna try this again.
Why aren't you connecting to the chat, YouTube? I mean, YouTube says we're live, it just doesn't want to connect to the chat.
So if I keep going to the screen like this, it's because my contact lenses are not my not my prescription.
There we go.
So I'm like, what is that?
Okay.
All right, it's a 25-second delay on video input to YouTube.
Pretty normal.
Yep.
There's really, I mean, I might be able to adjust that a little bit. No, I can't. I lied.
I can't get it on Twitch.
All we're saying it for was
Wait,
it's just something to remember for when you ask for people to chat.
Yeah,
You're not going to hear it for 25 seconds.
Yeah, it's usually, the latency is anywhere from 15 to 35 seconds per their guidelines.
Well, it's just like if you were to go live on national television, because of how it's used nowadays, you have to take some things into account. Like if something gruesome were to happen, you might be able to cut the feed.
All right, guys, I can't figure out Twitch. I don't know why it's not connecting to Twitch.
Okay.
It's just, I'll have to look into it another time.
Maybe you have to completely uninstall and reinstall OBS, and
probably.
I could probably come over when you move and help you set it up and see if there's just some kind of wonky thing going on.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get it all set up anyway. When I have to get all this reset up anyway. So that's okay. I will monitor the Facebook. Oh, Facebook chat comes through here, doesn't it?
Yes, it's right here.
No.
Hi, Jared.
Hi guys. So welcome to episode 7, 8,
6. Episode 6.
No.
Yep.
Are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
I thought we've done more. Okay, welcome to episode 6 of CosTalk Live. Today we are talking. What's our subject today, Sam?
Foam smithing.
Foam smithing. So let's go ahead and start with introductions. We'll start with our guests, Xo1 Cosplay. So please introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Xo1 Cosplay. This is Killian Cosplay. We work together a lot. We use foam as pretty much one of our main mediums. We've been working hard at it for the past year and a half now.
Yep.
Usually big armor builds has been the big thing so far.
Cool.
And then for those of us who are joining for the first time, let's introduce the rest of us ladies, because
yes,
the loudmouth here, ThermoCosplay. Sam, what's up?
that's all you say. I always give like a little bit of
Sam,
background.
ThermoCosplay, cosplaying for 6 years, won 6 awards. The end. What's up?
Well, welcome, Sam.
Who you represent?
And Liz?
Liz, can you hear us, Liz? Liz, I think there's a delay.
It's like
Uh-oh.
in and out like a lot.
It might be your connection.
Yeah. Your connection was a little spotty there just for a second.
Introduce yourself, Liz.
She's all delayed.
Yep.
Okay, this is Ambrose Cosplay, like underneath me, I think. Okay,
Yep.
Yeah.
so Ambrose Cosplay, she's awesome. She sews a lot. You need to check out her tutorials on Facebook. Yeah.
Hi. All right, guys. Sorry, I'm doing some sharing things here. My name is Jessica. I'm Jinx Cosplay. I've been cosplaying since 2001. I do a lot of video game cosplay. It's kind of my thing, I guess. And I also do Moana, which is like not a video game, but I'm a Moana main.
Moana
so.
should be a video game. Sheesh. It'd be
I'm
fun.
sure it
Become
I'm sure
a
it is
wayfinder.
somewhere.
Yes, I want to be a wayfinder.
Yeah, learn how to wayfind.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
I mean, we'd have a lot of sailors.
Yep.
I have a visitor. Sorry.
Oh, so cute. All right. So Ben, your first cosplay was actually a huge endeavor, right?
Yeah, it was a monster. It's that monster in the corner right over there. That's the chest plate for it. The rest of it is packed away at the moment.
What is it? What was the costume?
It's the Xo1 Power Armor from Fallout 4, and it's that one just right behind him, right against the wall there. That's just the chest plate of the monster. The helmet is right behind me. That one was my very first cosplay adventure with foam crafting, and pretty much first ever by myself cosplay that I've ever really built fully by myself.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Oh wow, you've done even more to it since I last saw it. Looks like. No?
Oh yeah, it's got
Okay.
quite a bit of work.
Yeah, and how long have you been working on it? Like, you've been working on it for quite some time.
I've been working on it for about
About a year and a half now.
Nice.
yeah, about a year and a half. September will be like a 2-year work point. Yeah, there we
Wow.
go. Yeah, I'm about 7 feet 2 inches tall at the base of the helmet, 7 feet 4 inches tall at the top of the hose. I've got a 6.5 to 7 inch, depending on how much foam compression I have on the boots, inch lift, so I can get up there. And best part about it is I can actually, the way I designed the boots, they're kind of like an upside down wooden T that's directly bolted to old school military boots. And so I mix them up and put them on, and I can actually almost get a slow running gait going with them. So
Yeah, you're actually pretty fast in that, like, considering.
I have a really good range of motion. And Chris here, his power armor, he didn't bring it because he's got it stored as well.
Yeah.
And he doesn't live here. He's just visiting me. But his power armor, he is the same height.
I do need to redo the boots on it though. They
So
not nearly as comfortable or as useful as his.
we'll be working on his boots here soon. Yeah, we'll have those finished up for Phoenix Fan Fusion.
Nice.
With 1,500 pieces. I used a combination of 3D editing programs, being Blender and Mesh Mixer, and then I used another program called Pepakura.
Well, why is it showing? I'm sorry. No.
Look at all that. I was having some fun.
I
Very
mean,
cool.
we're just partying it up, guys. It's fine.
We've got some
Well,
people in the
YouTubers are
chat.
seeing some fun stuff and some crazy
Hi,
stuff.
I know you said hi to Jared before. Yeah, my studio is
Yeah.
empty. Like, after
Hi,
this, I gotta
Rob.
pack up my
How are you?
computer. Hi, Rob.
There we go.
Thanks for coming by, guys. Yeah, awesome.
There we go, yeah.
So most people when
That
they
was-
start, most
That
people when
was
they start
done by the
cosplay.
awesome King Cart Photography, too. They rock. They did a fantastic. So you can see here in the beginning, so you look at my kneecaps, and this was pretty much the first time I wore this power armor. This was the second day, I believe. I was in living hell. I had not did my measurements or guesstimates right. I had no infill inside the armor, so it was balancing precariously. I learned that proper rigging and proper spacing with like bed foam is a must. If you're wearing a large costume, you don't want it wobbling on you. Well, you want it to where it's compression fit with really soft, like squishy foam you can get from like an old Tempur-Pedic mattress. But let alone the program Pepakura, I took the 3D model, cut it into several pieces, and then printed them out and used the patterns. I cut the patterns out. The biggest hassle was trying to get the channel cuts to get proper curves and things like that, and that was quite a learn process for me. I think I screwed up a couple of times bad enough to where it added an extra 80 hours worth of work because I had to completely redo it all.
Wow.
And I just wasn't taking my time and was trying to just move a little too quickly.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it actually really
Reached the point where it is forgiving.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, no more. Stop. I'm done.
It'll look at you and cry and then make you redo it all.
Oh yeah.
I think you redid those shins 4 times. I redid my leg plates at least twice.
Yeah, shins were a nightmare. I even whenever I printed the thigh plates out, I had some. I can't even put it in the picture of how big round these were. They were probably about that round, and they were the thigh plates because I had scaled them incorrectly, and so I had done a lateral measurement when I should have done a bilateral measurement. So going from the highest point to the lowest point on a diagonal across the vertices, so you can get the dimension proper. And no, I just did straight down from the thigh down, and instead it scaled it by like 12 times. So it was made for someone who would naturally stand maybe 12, 13 feet tall.
Yeah, I mean, when most people start with a cosplay, it's usually like, let me go to Goodwill and find, let's see what I can piece together. And no, Ben's like, I'm gonna make a power armor.
that would have been too smart, and we can't have that around here.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a great first cosplay. It's like everyone's question is, what was your first cosplay? And I think Sam, yours was actually, you kind of did the same thing. You kind of went into what Demon Slayer was that? Mine was like Renoa from Final Fantasy VIII. Like, it was really easy, but it's just funny, like, yeah, mine was a power armor, and that's something that people like aspire to do in like years after they start. So like, kudos to you. That is awesome.
Yeah,
As much as I would say it was a bad idea, it was also a really good idea because you had to learn a lot as you go.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
true.
even if you're looking at it and it's this huge daunting task, and you just look at like, oh man, I've only got 35 different parts that I need to build for this one small section. You eventually, over the course of your like 200 hours worth of work, you get pretty good at it by hour like 180.
That was funny. A very old picture of one of my very, very awesome pirate characters I used to portray. His name was Plank. Rest in peace, soldier. Rest in
yeah, because before cosplaying, what did you do?
Yes. I did street improv and acting as the pirate Plank for about 10 years, and the last 3 years I did it with Moon Mermaid. It was a lot of fun. I got to work with a lot of high level people. It was a lot of fun. And then I finally, after a certain point, decided that it was time to move on and start doing what I've always dreamed of, which is the sci-fi. And so I've always been kind of, straightforward, head on to any problem so you can solve it the quickest way and most efficiently. And so I decided to dive head first with making that monstrous costume, and it actually turned out right. And nowadays I'm doing different kinds of foam crafting. This is my Deathcore of Krieg helmet that I'm doing. It's an old German Stahlhelm from like the 50s. It was made for the Polish, and then the rest of this is all foam craft with real oxidized paint. So we use a copper medium in the paint, and then you use a Tiffany green acid, and it can get the corrosion looking, well, it is.
Patina? Is that called patina? Yeah.
Yep.
Nice.
Instead, I'm just concentrating the patina to look like a deep corrosion. Oh yeah, my Dr. Freeze.
Oh,
That
nice.
With a little bit of help from ThermoCosplay. She helped me with the figuring out how to do a pattern. Taught me, that go with it, take your time, measure if you have to, measure it strip by strip before you cut it. And that's what I did with this one. This is to be honest, my very first official cosplay where no one actually helped me build it, but I did have a lot of help with how to go about that. So I don't ever really count that as my first alone. But that one, yeah, that was a lot of fun. Although I will tell you, I suffered for about 2 weeks with terrible neck pain and knots because
You're not a cosplay if you don't suffer. Like,
Oh, man.
it's not cosplay if you're not in pain or you're not stressed. Like, no,
I'm not
cosplay
gonna
kit is
lie,
not easy.
took a very sick pleasure when I took a sledgehammer to it and threw it in the trash can. That thing was deadly. I've never been in that kind of pain before, and I'm a chef for my full-time job, so I have to look down, and when you can't crane your neck to look down at things you're preparing, you really regret making a decision like that.
Yeah, I think if anyone says like, "Oh, cosplay is easy," I'm like, "You're not doing it right." You need to have some pain somewhere in your body, or burns, or cuts, or something.
Blisters, cuts, bites. Yeah, this was my first official leap into cosplay. This was my what if Wilhelm from Borderlands was real? Like, what would he look like? Whenever I first got into cosplay, I always wanted to do, hey, can I bring someone to life instead of bringing the character out? Can I bring them to life? But I figured out that it's far better to follow the tradition and bring that character itself to life. And yeah, that was a lot of fun. The armature on it and everything, the eyepiece and the little shoulder cannon were all robotic because I like electronics, and so I did it all analog with a controller, servo tester controller, to be honest, right on the wrist. And so if I turned it counterclockwise, it would turn all of them 90 degrees. And so if I turned it counterclockwise all the way, it turned them all 90 degrees. So it would be attack position and then fold up, attack position and then fold up. And
Cool.
sadly, that poor puppy is been officially retired. It is falling apart. It did not age well.
And I mean, that's another thing about, when you're making these armor builds is one thing people don't think about is like storage, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you live in a small space, that's me. Where are you going to put it? So, I mean, how did you feel about having to retire it because, like, you wanted to do other projects? And
That's pretty much exactly what it was. I had other projects that kicked in, and since I knew that I wouldn't be able to ever wear it again, and that I technically, I'm not going to sit there and put up a little display case of a costume that, I made. I relegated it to where I took off most of the electronics. I repurposed them. I made an automatically rotating minigun for our Fallout group's camp. So we have an automated turret out front now. So the eyepiece and the little shoulder cannon, those got repurposed into a Fallout-inspired turret minigun.
Yeah, what about
Yeah, and then... Oh, yeah? Oh.
yeah, Robert says, what about the T-51?
Well, okay, so my laptop is on its last legs. I'm limping it through life by not using it. But I currently have another PC in the works right now, and I should have it ready soon. I'm just waiting for an OS to come in, and I should be able to get started with the T51. I just can't pull it up anymore. I get crashes and everything like that because my poor little GPU just is toast. So...
So when you talk about, like, you're starting a foam project, so especially for people that have never dealt with foam before, like, what are, like, some of the most important things that they need to know before they start?
Prep. It's all prep. 99% of a foam build will be decided in the prep.
Yep.
So
Prep,
if you
clean
can,
slate, clean place, and all of the product you need.
So you're talking about, like, the physical prep, like
Yeah.
an empty tape.
yeah. So you're gonna want to make sure that your space is going to accommodate your pieces.
Mhm.
Because quite a few times during the power armor builds, we ran into an issue where we would run out of space, and when we were trying to work in the weird confined space, cuts would get a little bit wonky, and
Get a few inconsistencies.
yeah, and things like that would happen, and you'd end up giving yourself more work because you didn't decide to take the time and rededicate a little bit of space so that you could work on a more reasonable surface. And also, if you can find a pattern to use or draft a pattern, all your prep for your measurements and things like that are really what's going to separate a fun experience versus okay, we're 200 hours in and we still haven't quite got it all figured out yet.
Yeah. Hey, what are you doing?
What is this? This is a roll of
Like,
foam.
what is Sam doing?
Basically,
I know, it's just like,
this
she's over
is like
shoes.
really, really thin foam, and it gives you an idea of how much, even like 2 millimeter and 4 millimeter foam, how much room it takes up. So
Yeah.
imagine 10 millimeter and 6 millimeter, and like you can't roll that as tight.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
Having plenty of space is probably one of the number one units when you get started. Especially, even if you go to Harbor Freight, you're looking at needing at least 2x2 space to do pattern work on. Because if you don't do your patterns right on a flat surface, any curve that you have is going to be twice so accentuated. Okay, goodness.
so for foam smithing 101 though, like, talk about your materials. So what do we need to start making stuff out of foam?
All right, so the big thing, foam. After that, once you figured out what you want to do with your foam, it depends on what you want to build. If you want to build a 3D structure that's simple, you can go the route that I did and use Pepakura and a couple of different 3D programs. You can go the route of 3D printing certain parts or holders, but beyond that, the main is just the foam. You're going to need a very sharp blade, something to hone the sharp blade. Otherwise, you're going to spend way too much money. This is a Diamond Machining Technologies honing pad. This is Diamond. This thing is pretty awesome.
Or you can just get like replacement blades. Like if people can't, if they're on a budget.
You can actually. This is the budget option.
Yeah, that's actually
Okay.
that's actually about $10, and it'll last you 15 years.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing is like one of these blades. You can get a pack of them for $10, and you get like what 10.
About
10
anywhere
of them,
from
like-
8 to 10 of them.
But foam will eat blades. It dulls the living hell out of them really fast.
Very quickly.
So we were in the middle of our build, and we'd be rehoning these blades every 10 minutes worth of cutting.
Yeah, 10 minutes straight of cutting would require about a minute of straight honing again before we could go back into cutting it like butter, because the way that the foam's structured, because of the air bubbles, it provides a lot of resistance, and it folds the wedge in different weird ways because of all the bubbles are shaped differently. And so the stresses on the blade itself is going to turn that wedge into a curled little mangled looking thing. And so having this, you can take a blade and make it last maybe 10, 15 times longer. And then you can feel good when you throw it away.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're probably going to be going through $10 every time you go sit down and start cutting with foam.
And a way to also prevent your blade from dulling is actually preheat your foam. So heat seal your foam before you start cutting it, and that releases some of those bubbles and helps.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question because I've hardly ever worked with foam. It's very scary to me, but I want to try.
Come over, my friend. I will kidnap you through the
I'm more
mirror.
of a seamstress than a foam person, but I've kind of dabbled in it before. Like I made a couple little armor pieces, like tents on my own. So is all foam created equal? Because like a lot of people will use like floor or yoga mats because they're super cheap, right? So is there certain types of foam that you recommend because it's like high density, it's better quality, stuff like that?
So if I had high density foam that some of these retailers are producing, the high kilogram ratio, first off, you can do far finer cuts. It's far less intrusive on your blade. You can actually get more cuts and not dull your blade as fast. We noticed this. And it takes and holds paints so well. It comes together, it heats, it's malleable. Yep.
It's almost like someone out there may or may not be sponsored.
Shameless plug. Shameless plug.
You want some coupon codes? Is They're
So,
local.
yeah.
They're in Happy Valley, and they sell foam. And they're finally starting shipping and going back because they were quiet for a while because stuff happened.
Yeah.
So
But
would you
just to
say,
answer the
like,
question simply, no, foam is not all created equal. Our power armor builds were all like,
Harbor Freight special.
yeah, super cheap, like floor mat foam, and it will work. If you are doing like a first project, Harbor Freight foam really is a decent way to start if you want to just get something really cheap that will hold shape and it will
So I've
mold.
got examples because I sat down and I'm kind of thorough. So here's Harbor Freight foam with an inside channel cut. So a wedge was taken out of it, and then it was folded over and sealed with the bonding agent, which is pretty much just contact cement. So then beyond that, you can use the textured side, which is kind of cool. So if you're looking for a texture, you can make fine geometric shapes by how you do your wedge cuts, things like that. This is all freehand, funny business. I just made it real quick to show off how you can do these different things. The cool thing about foam, it's very forgiving and it stretches, so you can do a complex shape channel cut on the inside. And whenever you display it, you'll actually have this really awesome high ridge line that's super smooth, and you can make a molded look out of anything with the foam. On top of that, with a soldering iron, you can start the beginning process of how to make wood grain and things like that. And to show, just for example, if you get a wood burner from the
Good old Harbor Freight.
from Harbor Freight, you can come in, and after it's nice and warm, you can just run the lines like this. Just wiggle them on through and bleed them all into each other. And
That's cool.
you can let it stay for a little longer, but you can see how doing it thin, you can make a little knot system here.
I have a hot knife, so I have a knife that's meant for these, and it comes with a series of things, and they have like different blades so that you can have different depths for cutting. But soldering iron works like just fine. Just know that you'll need to clean it. Like once it's cool, you need to clean off the excess, because if it builds up over time, it can become very caustic, and it can also mess with your ability to do this texture work.
I just got a soldering iron, so I'm kind of excited to use it.
They're
That's
great.
really cool.
And so
Awesome.
you
How
can
nice
do
that
that.
looks. And it's
so,
basically
you just
sealed
fill
too
in the
because it's
line.
heat, right? So you're done.
Yeah, and you don't even have to worry about it at that point. The fun part about this too is that if you have a proper evacuation system, and this is the simple Harbor Freight wood burning kit, so it has a brass tip that actually doesn't accumulate the ethyl vinyl acetate from the foam. So when you use it, it doesn't even require a clean off because it's so hot that it actually acts like a non-stick surface. And
So you would say that this is better to use than a soldering iron?
Yes, because you also get a really, really awesome little kit of a whole bunch of different heads.
Yep.
It's like
Cool.
it's like $8 or
the hot
$9.
knife has that too. So if you get a hot
Yeah.
knife, it has the same thing. Hot knives are usually more expensive though because they get much warmer than a wood burner.
Yes, they do. They get much
I
hotter.
mean,
They
melted
get
my
about
floor in my
800.
old house.
Do you use those to cut foam?
You
hot knife?
can.
Yeah.
Although I would highly suggest good ventilation.
Or a respirator.
Or
Yeah.
respirators?
And
Sam's all
nobody
about safety.
and no animals in your room. Respirator and no animals in your room.
Yeah, good ventilation
Isn't there
or a
like
mask.
isn't there like a little trick too where you can use like the cutter to kind of cut lines on the surface and then you use the heat gun to open them up?
Yep, you can use like an X-Acto blade or a utility knife, any sort of sharp blade, and then you slowly but surely don't go too close to the foam, because if you do that, then you run the risk of actually melting the foam and destroying the little cut that you've made. So you'll want to score only once. Make sure you have enough pressure, like he's doing. Score once, because if you score multiple times, then you're gonna have multiple lines. But if you score once, really deep,
I'll show you the
or
difference
halfway,
between them.
and then you hit it with a heat gun, you'll see he's going to show you. This is going to be loud, guys.
It shouldn't be terribly loud, but it might be. I do apologize if it is.
We're going to listen to
Volume
hair dryer.
warning, right?
Headphone warning.
Can we like get a button that I push and it just says headphone warning? That'd be amazing.
That would be nice.
Yeah. Turn your volume down.
That's
So
not
then once
bad.
you hit it with the heat gun,
Mine's way louder. Mine sounds like a car. Mine's
Mine's
also
pretty loud,
really
too.
old.
I have the cheapy one.
mine's well used, so it's nice and quiet and happy. So you can see
Ooh,
how just
cool.
the little score cuts create a really straight, wide channel.
And
See
you
that?
can do channels like that to create, like you said, the bends too. So if you wanted to score it a couple times and hit it with a heat gun, then put some contact cement in there, you can have little small curves.
Nice.
That's so
Yeah,
cool.
then on top of that too, say when you bend it, you can have
Yeah.
some really good texture on things too. So if you wanted to do a segmented belt, that's how you could create something like that without doing too much to even get it achieved. The best part is that you have all this lovely texture, you know, and of course people get handsy at cons, and it's very exciting to see your favorite character. And well, if you're going to touch me, which you probably will, I might as well make it an awesome experience by blowing it with how cool
Whoa.
and intricate it is. But, you know, at the same time,
Don't touch.
no
Don't
touch.
touch. So,
Oh,
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
well, okay, so I'm like okay with foam. I'm not an expert or anything. Learn this, but I don't know if it's true. So you verify. Like, so if you've got a rough cut, you know, people don't have sharp knives, and it's got a rough ridge. You can just take the heat gun and it'll like smooth it out.
For some cuts, now this is the thing, you have to make sure, like you will have some that are too big. That's where you'll need to take like a Dremel or some kind of rotary tool. But yeah, in general, as long as you slow heat and you just keep going over it, it will melt the foam and into itself.
Oh, that's the same as well. So if you had, if you used a Dremel and it was too rough afterwards, then you would just use the heat gun to like smooth it. That's cool. Okay.
Yeah, some of the time, like, I have had a couple of cuts where the edges are kind of frayed looking because my blade wasn't very good. I found that if you take a brulee torch, a small torch, and it has like all these kind of like rigid fuzzies on it because it was kind of janky and sharp, really, really quickly, you just hit it with a little bit of the flame, just ever so slightly kiss it with the flame, and it will melt those little ridges right off.
So if you're gonna tear through the foam and say you've got a really, really rough cut, versus, you know, with a very sharp knife, you can achieve some good cuts, even if you have to do it again, as long as you keep it straight. But you'll see you'll have these weird little lines and striations in there and the little imperfections. These little imperfections you can easily fix with a heat gun. So, do you mind plugging that puppy in for me?
And Steve Jordan, you say hair dryers are just as good? Not necessarily, because hair dryers don't get that hot.
Yeah.
Obviously,
A
you're the
heat
human
gun
head.
is meant to peel up like laminate and wallpaper, and so what it does is it actually certain foam, like craft foam, sure, a hairdryer will work because it's a much smaller foam. It's 2 or 4 millimeter. But foam that's basically any foam that's over 4 millimeter, you have to have a heat gun, or you will not achieve the minimum heating requirement temperature for that foam to actually work and release the bubbles.
So you can see hitting it with the heat gun and rubbing it on a flat surface took a lot of the imperfection out of the straight cut that was done second wise, because I couldn't get it all the way through. But then with the really, really chunky monkey here, say you've got a really, really old, you know, unit and it's getting there, you can try. I don't know. I'm gonna try because I've never had it this bad before. I'm a
You should be wearing gloves. You're gonna hurt yourself.
You're such an expert. Such a pro that you've never messed up that bad.
No, not with the cuts, but I have with making sure that the cuts weren't reversed, and so I just had to throw it away and start over again.
I know for sure when I started out with foam, I was like, oh my god, I can't do this again. So I just did the best I could, like sanding it down. And had I known that, it would have been helpful.
It
So
kind of did a good job. It's still very textured, but there is some degree
It's a lot
of,
cleaner.
you know, I'm sure over multiple things, and don't worry about us inhaling anything. I have the window open and I have an evacuation fan going.
Dan's freaking out.
Yeah, don't worry about it. We're not huffing the goodies
Yeah,
here.
just so everybody knows, EVA foam, high density foams, any sort of closed cell foam, which is what this is, releases a type of gas that is very similar to what is released when you pour bleach in a toilet. So
always be.
I believe it's hydrochloric gas, I think. Anyways, it's dangerous.
I can't remember. I know that burning ethyl vinyl acetate is
it's very
not
bad.
good.
It's very bad for your upper respiratory system. It's very bad for your brain. It's bad for your sinuses. So it's just best to have gloves, have a respirator on, even if it's something simple. If you can't do it, obviously this time it's really difficult to find respirators at the moment. I know I can't even find replacement filters right now. So if you have a vacuum or some kind of fan and you've got windows open, that is advisable. Or you can do that and wear a death mask.
Nice.
Now we are focused. We're based out of Arizona, so we're having to temper people. Just so everybody knows on the stream, we're having to temper our foam more aggressively than other states because our temperatures get up to the minimum temperature that the foam is heated at. So we
never store it outside. Never store your foam outside.
We have to heat it higher, and we have to seal it with more stuff. Like for instance, a lot of people, when you've done foam, you can typically hit it with a plasti dip and then start painting it. In most regions, that's okay. In Arizona, if you want it to last, you usually need to hit it with a coat of wood glue or flex bond or some kind of Mod Podge, something that seals in everything and protects it from the heat and creates a refraction of the light so that the foam can last longer.
Yeah.
So I actually had a question sort of related to that about basically, let's say you've now, glued your piece together, you're ready to seal it and get to more of like the painting and embellishing process. So I saw a foam tutorial recently that was really good, like the piece was really good, but their painting process had so many steps to it with so many different products. And so I was just kind of wondering, like, if, let's say you're ready to seal it and then start painting it, what would that look like? Like, what products would you use? What does the process look like in order to prep your foam for that sort of a thing?
Go ahead, Ben, because you did a lot with your Xo1 armor that helped it last longer at Fan Fusion, and it was like 118 that day.
Yeah, it can handle the surface temperature. I've done with this is an awesome tool. I'll tell you anyone. These infrared thermometers are awesome because they'll tell you exact surface temperatures up to about 400 degrees reliably. If you want anything higher, you have to get a better professional grade. The Power Armor has reached a temperature of 143 degrees and hasn't deformed.
Wow.
However, I've used several different products. I have used a combination of wood glue.
And about a case and a half of plasti dip.
Yeah, about a case and a half of plasti dip. Him and I are currently working on a thing right now about appealing to plasti dip for some support in some future projects. So stay tuned.
Because
they got some cool things we want to try, and
plasti
they
dip
might
is
just start
actually
it, so we'll see.
It originated more in auto industry. So you can buy gallon
It's
cans.
a rubberized primer. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you can buy gallon cans of plasti dip, and as long as you have the proper fancy sprayer that it needs, because it's really thick, you can spray it out of a gun. Because a lot of the times it's used to dip cars.
Yeah.
So
actually, yeah, like when I go to Lowe's or whatever, they're so limited on their plastic dip. But if you go to AutoZone, they have like 20 different colors. I'm like,
yeah,
Pet Boys has so many colors.
I was like, what the heck? That's so cool.
So here's a sealed piece of EVA foam. So I like to use. It's taken me a while to learn how to use it.
Oh, hey, I gave that to you.
And it's been refilled several times too. Chris got 1 gallon of it, and so we've had
tricky.
1 gallon to play with and get good with it.
It's tricky.
When you pre-seal your foam, it does not absorb very well. On top of that, we highly suggest if you're going to use Creature Cast, which is effectively a liquid neoprene rubber, this has a shelf life that's real high if you get it thick enough. If you don't get enough layers, it can and will tear.
yeah.
It's very good. It's fantastic. It's very easy to use once you figure it out. It's a bit temperamental. It likes to ribbon, so turn into legs, thick beads, when you're applying second and third and fourth layers. So that's when we would highly suggest, after the first initial layer of creature cast, you would use then a combination of the creature cast and the creature cast thickener agent in order to allow it to spread and stay even as it dries. So that way you have a better coat of the liquid neoprene.
You said like 4 coats. How many coats would you put? Like how many was in your power armor?
In my power armor, I currently have 15 coats and counting. So
Jesus.
Yeah.
And how much time between each coat?
But if you want to, like, if we want to talk about basic foam coating real fast, basic foam coating, you heat seal it, cut it, glue it, heat seal it again.
Yeah.
Yep,
And then
yeah.
prime it with one of I'd say 4 things. If you want it to remain semi-rigid, 2 coats of wood glue. If you want it to stay flexible, then 2 coats of either a Mod Podge, a matte finish Mod Podge, or high finish, depending on whether you want a gloss or a matte, or 2 coats of fabric glue that's been a little bit watered down because it stays flexible. Now you can also buy a product called Flex Bond, which is made for foam. It's just a little bit difficult to order right now because of shipping issues, but that is made for foam, and 1 to 2 coats of that completely seals the foam and makes it much more durable as well. And then after that, you can paint it with pretty much anything. Just know that if you're going to be using acrylics, you need to use acrylics that have latex in them. So I suggest Liquitex. The reason I say this is that's more flexible and it creates longevity in the paint. So instead of it chipping, it actually lasts a lot longer and it stretches, and you'll see it peel before it chips.
Another thing that I actually did on this, because I made a spade, is I was using the golden GD900 fabric paint medium.
Mm-hmm.
So you can mix that within the acrylic, and it gives it the stretchiness that it needs.
The textile medium, like the Americana fabric textile medium or the golden, there's several of them, and yeah, they work just as fine on foam as they do on fabric. It's weird.
Yeah, it's great. So that's what I've been using so that I could get a lot of the colors that I wanted to use, or be able to mix up a batch of colors that I couldn't find in any fabric paints. And I have a lot more just artist paints laying around than I do fabric paints, because most of my paint collection is for model making and things like that. So I found the golden to be, like, just the fabric mediums to be very helpful, so that you can use any set of colors that you have that you tend to really like and turn them into something that'll be flexible enough to stand on the foam. Because some of the early projects I did with the foam, I painted them and they just flaked right off as soon as I bent the foam.
That Dr. Freeze costume I did, that had a lot of flaking because I did not know that I had to seal the foam. That was a big thing. So with the creature cast, the cool thing about the creature cast that I really enjoy is that with a little bit of heat applied, it's now pretty much almost partially cured. You see how shiny that is?
Wow.
So what I learned with this Deathcore Krieg helmet that I have here, I learned that light heat applied from the bottom part of the mask, allowing the heat to seep up through the foam. While I was applying it, if I didn't have a thickener, it didn't matter because it was curing from the bottom up instead of the top down. So when you go from the top down, you'll get a lot of little chunky bits that come down because you're just pulling cured product down. Well, when you apply heat from the bottom, Creature Cast cures with heat. They even say you can put it in the oven at 200 degrees and it'll cure. You could cure a thick mat of it if you wanted to. But the cool part about it is that with the heat applied on the bottom, you can achieve multiple layers very quickly. And then with that, you have a super flexible. It'll take punishment, especially when it's fully cured. Depending on if you get the semi-flex, the super flex, the rigid, or the semi-rigid. I usually, to be honest, want to go with rigid, semi-rigid, because most of the points I have aren't going to be flexible. It also paints very well on the power armor. Each one of the joints with the arms is fabric I sewed together and then painted with Creature Cast to cover it in neoprene and make it look more futuristic.
Nice.
I do,
I
however...
have two questions for you guys, if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
So once you paint paint it, how do you then like seal it completely? Like you're done with the paint job and it looks good. Like what would you use to seal it?
So on mine, I just used a spray varnish on my power armor, just standard old like Rust-Oleum clear matte.
Yeah.
It held up well. It did take a trip down an escalator the hard way, and it didn't chip the paint, and I was kind of surprised.
Wait, you did, or the can of, or the can did?
He was a human wrecking ball in power armor, which makes sense, but he went down the escalator and he caught himself good. And he
Was that at Tucson?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I was there for that.
But,
good thing he's a big, strong man. He held himself just fine.
But with what I've been doing lately on any smaller projects, because I got this foam shovel, I've actually been using my airbrush on a lot of these smaller props to spray them with a mixture of the fabric medium, a clear matte varnish, because the fabric medium is a high gloss, so I want to dull it back down to a satin, and a little bit of airbrush thinner, and I can put on 4 or 5 coats, and even still, like it's really sturdy. I haven't scratched through it. It's really flexible still, and I was treating it really, really gently when I first finished it because I was really happy with my paint job and I didn't want to ruin it. But then I accidentally scuffed it on a hand railing, and I was like, oh great, here we go. I got 2 whole coats of airbrush thin clear on there, so I went and wiped off the transferred oxidized residue from the hand railing, thinking I was going to take paint off. No, it stayed on there real nice. As long as you get something that'll, if you're having a part that'll be flexible, something that'll flex with the part and won't crack, just any clear coat will do. So I've been having fun mixing up batches of clear coat to shoot through my airbrush. And
I use the crystal clear varnish online. All that fun stuff. It does a really good job about diffusing the light and making it look more used, but still fairly well taken care of, and defined. Whereas a crystal clear matte isn't going to flex very well. It's going to fracture and crack. I have seen some people use Plasti-Dip clear, and apparently that worked pretty good, but
Sam's saying no.
apparently not. Yeah, apparently not. I
had to completely unpeel an entire sword because it failed.
Wow.
An entire sword that was taller than me.
Which sword was that? Is that Fu's sword?
Yojimbo.
Yeah, so as I said, I had never used it, so.
But this works.
Yep.
Perfect. Nice.
Mod Podge, fantastic stuff. That's good.
I also just use fabric glue, like Aleene's fabric glue, because it spreads so easily. I just brush it on really nice, thin, 2 thin coats on my prop, and
there you go.
Yeah, you have to make sure that you get a couple of coats, but after that, just seal it up with a clear. A couple coats of clear and things start turning out well.
I have also used clear quick seal. It's a little
What's
weird,
that?
but it's fun. It's
You
fun
use
having
what?
a silicone coat.
Sorry, Sam, I didn't get it. You just what?
Clear quick seal.
Oh, clear
Yeah.
pixel. Okay. Cool. All right.
Oh, that
And you
sounds
had
like pain.
you had a second question, Liz?
Oh yeah, I did. I forgot. So I know, so I've done 2 little armor pieces before, and I know one of the tricks that I had picked up from somewhere was you could use watered down quick seal in the seams that didn't quite come together, right? Because I have tiny hands, so it's so hard to get the seams together on big pieces. I have a hard time with that. Can you then, let's say the quick seal didn't really, it's kind of rough on the edges. Can you sand that? Can you Dremel that? Or is that,
This end piece here was a separate section that I added to it. And then I Dremeled it down to form the end of the knob handle and put quick seal on the transition so that it would be a little bit smoother. And afterwards, I can try for about an hour and a half to get that smooth, and it's never going to be smooth. So I spent 10 minutes just sanding it down to make sure that my transition was nice and smooth, and to re-rough up the quick seal, because if it skins over and is really, really shiny, paint doesn't like to stick to it. So just lightly sanding it kind of makes it stick a little better.
That's actually why I use a watered down coat of wood glue to seal all of my props, because I use quick seal and silicone so often, and I know you can basically not paint over it. So I do one watered down coat of wood glue just to make sure I can apply paint to my armor.
I have found that if I have a rough edge on a corner with quick seal, that you're gonna laugh, but a Bic lighter is a fantastic. A Bic lighter with your thumb. If you've got heat tolerance, I've got a lot of heat tolerance in my hand.
Use mechanics gloves. They're neoprene coated, so they don't stick.
Yeah, and they're very thick. You can even get 10 mil thick too, so you can get some very thick gloves. Hit that corner or hit that seam with a Bic lighter for just a moment, and just press your thumb on that and roll your thumb like up like that, and it will hide that seam very well. It'll do a pretty good job. It's kind of surprising, actually.
Nice.
Now all of my seams were filled with quick seal. Pretty much all of them.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah, definitely. If there's anyone in the audience, if there's anyone out there that wants to ask some questions, because we have a little bit of a delay, throw your questions up there, and we'll ask them, because we're about to close up here.
I wanted to mention something real quick. We're talking about seams. With foam clay now, you can take water and foam clay and fill in your seams with foam clay and let it dry. And the water seals it so that it's completely flush. And then
I love foam clay.
You just
It's
sand
like
a little
the
bit
coolest
where there
thing
might be an
right
extra
now.
layer.
I've been playing with foam clay too, and I really like it.
So
I'm
you
about
can
to
use.
see my first bit here pretty soon. I'm very excited.
It's amazing. Well, and foam clay, think about it. It's made out of the same foam typically that you're using, so that means that it's going to stay permanent with it. Now they're bonded, and you don't have a texture difference where you would with quick seal. Quick seal's been great, but there's always a texture difference, so you can tell, and you have to really hide that. But with foam clay, it's the same texture.
Oh, I've definitely experienced the foam clay bonding.
It stays. I remember.
I did not realize that they would fuse immediately if
Ah,
they
yeah.
were like wet.
Jessica, you had that problem too, right? With your horns, you didn't realize.
No, it's okay. I didn't
Okay.
actually use water on mine. I was actually pretty quick to I just kind of wrapped it around a wire. It looked like a soft serve. I was like, this is so cool. I love foam clay.
Foam clay does set really fast, so in order to reactivate it, as long as it hasn't fully cured, you use water.
Yeah, actually, it was during the winter that I was doing it, so it wasn't as hot, temperature wise. So I was able to still change things around as it was curing. Obviously now it's 100 degrees outside. It'd probably cure in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But yeah, foam
quickly.
Foam clay is my new favorite thing. So I don't know why I haven't experienced it sooner.
with the heat going on nowadays, this shovel has 12 coats of paint on it. But that's because I was doing faux wood grain texture and I needed a separation of colors.
Right.
And so with the different layers of color that I had to do a ton of different layers. But it was nice being able to just go outside for about 5-6 minutes, the whole coat of paint's dry, and come back in and do the clear and just repeat those steps.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Arizona is that because people, the reason why I don't do a lot of foam stuff is because
cosplayer, things dry so quick.
Yeah, because the reason I don't do a lot of foam stuff is because oh my god, there's so many layers, and I've done stuff with foam and I haven't done the proper amount of layers. But yeah, when you're out here during the summer, that is when it's great to be a cosplayer in Arizona. You can just put something outside. It's probably going to be done in 30 minutes or even an hour to be fully cured. And you're like, yes, next coat. Let's go and do something else. And I remember I was watching Heroes of Cosplay, and Ricky was trying to cure something outside, and they live in Georgia, and it was taking 3 days. Yeah, I think it was I can't remember what it was, but. Yeah,
at that point, you just kind of want to get yourself a very large bag of silica dioxide and put your piece in there to let it dry, because you need some sort of deskin, I would assume.
Oh, that 90% humidity does not help.
Or a very
Yeah.
nicely sealed room with a dehumidifier.
Well,
beyond
and in places like that, though, they typically can use hot glue and other adhesives that we can't use either. So there's some cheats that they get to, like when you're not in Arizona or you're not in a very arid, hot environment, you can use hot glue and you can use some of these other mediums like acrylics and stuff, and they'll bond better and form better because the moisture in your air is actually helping the foam survive. Where ours is leaching it and destroying it, so that's why we seal it extra.
Yeah.
I get nervous when people talk about hot gluing their cosplay. I'm like, what? No!
Not
Well,
in Arizona. No, I have
Chris
seen
and I
people
have
get
discovered
naked,
that
not on
it's really
purpose at
good.
con. Like, I watched a girl walk out in her armor, and literally, she was wearing a dress that was hot glued together, which is already kind of iffy, but I literally watched the seams burst, and then her friend looks over and starts laughing, and then she's looking over, and she's, like, literally, she's, like, melting off her body, and I'm like, I don't know whether to laugh or run over and like, hide you, but, like, she was basically becoming naked.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, a swarm of people went around her to keep her safe, but it was one of those things where you're like, oh no, I'm watching a car wreck, but it's not a car, it's a person getting naked.
Yeah. Hot glue must be great in, like, Canada, you know.
It actually is on. You can use it. We have found that there is special.
Gorilla Glue hot glue is amazing.
Yeah, the
high temp.
Gorilla Glue high temp. You
That stuff
have
does
to
a
get
pretty
high
good
temp
job.
because the high temp is rigid until 180 degrees.
Yep.
And most of the time,
It's really good for
as long as
detail
it's not
work.
sitting in a car
Yeah.
and it's 110 outside, you'll be okay.
Yeah, if it's like a low friction area and you need just it for Velcro or snaps,
Yeah.
or you need details, works just fine. But if you're
But don't put your whole piece together, your whole outfit together with hot glue. That could be bad.
For Tyzok in the chat, I haven't used foam clay and Warbler together, so I don't know. Sam?
Hi, what's the question? Am I missing something?
It was Tyzok is asking if it's okay to use foam clay and Warbler together. Like if
Yes.
you run out of one and you have some of the other, do they play nice together? This is the YouTube.
So
by the
if
way.
you're
This is YouTube chat? Okay.
Yeah.
If you're doing foam clay, please make sure it's cured before you cover it in Warbler. Now, if you've got something made out of Warbler and you're adding foam clay on top of it, it will mostly adhere, but what I advise you do is sculpt it on top of whatever it is you're trying to attach it to, let it cure fully, and then anything that still lifts, just use a little contact cement to keep it completely glued to the Warbler. But it
Nice.
plays well. So far from what I've seen, it's worked. And
I mean, you
I
can
played
use-
with it myself a little bit, and honestly, what I did was like, I sculpted the piece a little bit like on it before it was fully cured and lifted it, and then heated up the Warbler and was like, now you're stuck.
I mean, because you can use Warbler with regular foam. Like, that's how a lot of people get all those, all those dimensions and stuff. So, I mean, I don't think foam clay would be any different as long as you cured it. Because it becomes the same thing. Absolutely.
My phone is going off like crazy, guys. Hang on a
Sam's
second.
so popular.
Oh my gosh.
So,
I'm
so
a
before
judge
we-
for an event tomorrow, and they're losing their minds. Give me a second to quiet them. Okay.
So before we wrap up, so tell us about your social media. Where can we find you guys?
Do we have any other questions? Two people post questions while we're getting this.
Yeah. I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Killian Cosplay and Props. Killion, not IAN. It's really easy to misspell. It's usually just a picture of my face in a helmet. It's really easy to find.
Novaroon Cosplay, all one word, on Instagram and Facebook page as well. Same thing.
All right. And you guys have some upcoming projects. I think you've talked about some of them.
Yeah, we have the Death Core of Krieg that we're doing from Warhammer 40K. Chris didn't bring his helmet today, which I don't blame him. It's a whole lot of stuff to lug around. But just like I showed earlier, we've been doing this. We actually gilded this with 24 karat gold leaf that I have here, so that is real 24 karat gold.
Nice. And that's covering. Is that covering foam?
That's actually a 3D printed Aquila.
Okay.
Heated and pressed into place. Here is foam. This is foam. Now, the medium that we use is actually like a red terracotta clay paint. And once you put that paint on, it creates a perfect porous medium for your adhesion to take place between the gold and your adhesive. And once your adhesive is ready to go, you press it on, and then you press it and flake it away with a nice, a very, 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 very nice, fluffy brush. I'll tell you, makeup brushes are fantastic. Right? Jing jing. All right.
I would also something we didn't do when we were gilding our helmets because we didn't think about it is I would put down paper or something because you are going to get gold. What was to gold glitter everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't want to be sparkly?
I am still finding gold on me somewhere.
Actually, as a matter of fact.
Oh, there it is.
And I will tell you right now, gold leaf, any kind of metallic leaf, is very dangerous to your eyes and very dangerous for your lungs. This is a microscopic metal. This is a leaf. This gets in your eye. It's game over for a minute. Okay, we're talking probably some scratch damage. Ingesting it, you're fine. It'll in one out the other. If it's real gold, it'll probably look just as good on the way out. But beyond that, you have to be very careful. So make sure that you're wearing neoprene gloves. You have long sleeve shirt, and you're wearing glasses. Protective glasses are necessary. Inhaling it, not so bad if it's a real natural metal like gold or silver. And I say only gold and silver because those are non-reactive with the human body. If it's tin, bronze, copper leaf, anything like that, wear a mask. Because we are talking a real metal. There are concerns with poison, poisoning yourself, nickel poisoning, copper poisoning, things like that. It really does exist. It can make you sick.
So speaking of safety, since we're working with foam, we suggest getting a mask or a respirator, making sure you're in a well-ventilated space. Wear mechanics gloves because they're neoprene coated. They're easier to feel with, so you've got better touch, and they're heat graded. A heat gun, a very sharp utility blade or knife with either a sharpener or a lot of replacement blades. And if you can, a hot knife because it really sharpens itself. You just have to clean it off. And you'll need a lot of contact cement if you're working in Arizona because hot glue is not going to cut it.
Lots of contact cement. And learning how to use that takes its own...
Yeah, and super glue gel works for detail work, but it typically will not keep your seams together because you have to hold it for so long. Contact cement is beautiful because you just put it on one side, wait till it looks like it's almost dry, and then go boop, and it stays.
Contact cement is amazing.
It's going to teach you patience.
Yes.
Sit there for 2 minutes.
That's great because you can go
don't put it together. Wait.
Yeah, you can put it away and then do something else. I
have way too many seams on my power armor that here. I'll ruin this intentionally, but they look too much like this, where they're all spread apart and they're trying to peel away from each other because I didn't wait long enough to stick them together.
Instead of like this.
Naughty.
Take your time.
Yeah, that's what I always do. I always put the glue and then set it aside and just do something else. But don't do that for too long. Like
you just have
if you wait too long,
use a Dremel. Like you can remove. Like if you really screw it up, wait till it's fully dry, and then use a really small bit on your Dremel and remove it, and then you can reapply it.
Yeah.
Even then, if you don't want to reapply, if you have a small like horsehair paintbrush, you can apply a small amount of acetone to it, and it'll rehydrate the adhesive. You wait a couple more moments after that. Done.
Awesome.
All right. Do we have any other questions? Anything anybody wants to ask? We'll give it a 25-second thing while we're doing that. Liz, where can we find you?
I can be found at Ambrose Cosplay on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok now. Which I don't know what I'm doing on TikTok. I'm too old to be on
No
TikTok.
one does. I'm too old for TikTok.
But there we are.
I think I'll have to get a TikTok to prove you wrong now.
I don't think I've ever tweeted like anything ever, so I'm there though. If you tweet.
I already hear enough of that in the trees. I'm good.
All right, Jess.
I am the Jinx Cosplay at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, which I suck at. And I also have my website, jinxcosplay.com. There's no the, so it's just jinxcosplay.com.
And then I'm Sam of ThermoCosplay, and if you just go to www.thermocosplay.com, you can just reach everything from YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Instructables, the list goes on. And I post on all of them regularly.
I have an Instructables, but I can't remember the username right now. So.
If you look for me, you might actually find him on Instructables because he likes me a lot. So just look for like with the big power armor, and it's him.
Yeah, look for the big ugly oaf and glowing armor.
And Sam, what are we doing next week?
Oh, next week. Okay, wait. Is that the 22nd? Okay, it's the 22nd.
That's Bros and Cons,
so
right?
next week is Bros and Cons. So next week we're going to be talking about capturing cosplay. So photography, videography, posing, modeling. What's it like to do on-site? What's happening currently? And how can you stay creative? Bros and Cons will be our guests. And they are amazing. So we'll be back here next Friday at 6:30 p.m. with Bros and Cons on capturing cosplay photography. Hang on.
All right.
I have to tell you about what it's like to hold on to a mermaid for like 2 hours while someone can't get the right light and a camera.
So I think that's it. We don't have any questions, so we're gonna wrap up for the night. We'll just end the broadcast and the stream. Thank you all for coming.
Yep. Thank you guys. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.